Slimehouse TV, myself Theo Cane, and welcome to episode 4 of my brand new social distancing podcast. We've got an awesome guest on today's show. Just before we get into that, I want to remind you that this is something that I do purely for the passion of doing it, man. So it really does help if you can just give this video a like. Make sure you drop a comment in the comment section. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If this is your first time here, I'm Theo Cane. This is Slimehouse TV, the place of everything and anything cool, artistic, retro and edgy. So whether you're into retro stuff and toy hunting and reviews and interviews with actors and directors from cult movies, this is a place for all that. It's a pure creative hub. So, today's guest is Jason Lei Howden. This is the guy that directed Deathgasm. This is the guy that directed the brand new Daniel Radcliffe crazy action movie when he's got guns attached to his hands called Guns Akimbo. And I was so happy to be able to get him on this show. He's a dude that I've wanted to get involved in something on Slimehouse for a long time, and this felt like the right thing to do it. So I was really excited to be able to get him involved in this podcast. Now, not only is this guy a certified director, he's made 2 absolute bangers. Also, for the past 20 plus years, he's worked in visual effects on certified big budget Hollywood releases. Everything from both the Hobbit movies, Man of Steel, The Great Gatsby, The Avengers, War of the Planet of the Apes, the Legion TV show, which I'm a huge fan of. Like all this stuff and more. Check him out on IMDb. This guy's been absolutely killing it for over 2 decades. So without further ado, this is my conversation from yesterday with the one and only Jason Lei Howden. Pow! Jason Lei Howden, I really appreciate you joining me today. How you doing, brother? You good?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Theo. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I love it, mate. I say we're going to get a nice clash of accents today. I think we said before, didn't we, that like, yo, we've both got some strong accents going on. I often get those comments on my YouTube videos like, oh, you guys need subtitles because of how we talk. So that
yeah,
maybe
speaking English.
One of those today.
It's strange. I get mistaken for for British when I'm in America, but like I feel like the New Zealand accent's really different.
No, it is. And do you know what? When I'm in America, I always get asked, are you Australian? Are you Irish? Because it's just such a hard no. I think since
really?
Game of Thrones got so big, because we talk like the guys that live north of the wall, like Jon Snow. That's how we talk. So it's become a bit easier for people to understand us. But no, whenever I go to America, it's always, are you Australian? Are you from New Zealand? Are you Irish? It's never England.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you know what I wanted to talk to you about today? Like especially like some of how you early got started, because from what I know of you, you came from like some little farm town or something like that, and then the next minute you're like making big budget movies, like full on. So I'm like, how's that trajectory work, man? I can't wait to hear how that started. How did you get into this stuff, bro?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a bit of a 20-year gap in that I realized I have been in the film and TV industry for 20 years, I think last year, which is crazy. But basically I've always been interested in films. Even as a little kid, I was taking photographs of my He-Man and making little scenes for them, almost little storyboards. So I think when I was really young, it was stuff like the Lei Howden films and Godzilla. I would watch those on TV and just I was blown away by the special effects and everything. And it was just like a different world. Like I couldn't believe. Yeah, it just sort of blew my mind. I couldn't understand really how people did those special effects. So I was always researching and coming from New Zealand, like you said, I came from a tiny wee farming town on the west coast of New Zealand, and I just there was never any assumption that I could get into that industry. You know, we're at the bottom of the world, and yeah, so like I ended up after high school, I started at this local TV station, just editing together like music shows, which was really fun, and sports shows. Would film the basketball and Speedway, and then it was I was like 17. It was a kind of an amazing job to have at that age.
Yeah, was that like old school editing as well? Was that like chopping on a block, or was that like digital editing?
Well, it was Super VHS, which a lot of people probably haven't used so much, but it was like we'd do like assembly editing, so we'd edit these like 3-hour tapes that would go to air later on in the day, and you'd have to chop them in sequence, and if you made a mistake, it caused like an assemble cut, which is like a glitch. So you'd have to go back and like and do it all over again, which is amazing to think about now.
I know the pain. That my first ever movie, like, when you used to shoot it on a home video camera at home and you're editing it on like 2 VHSs and you had to edit it in sequence. People don't know how lucky they are now where you can sit on Premiere and just back and forth that stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, people don't understand how difficult it was. I used to do the same with 2 VHS. I edited together this. I was in this band in the '90s, and I edited together like I got all these horror movies out, like just dozens and dozens of horror movies, and I just edited together all the gory scenes. So it was just like it was playing on a projector behind our band, just like people getting chopped up from like Brain Dead and Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Evil Dead, and all these movies. But yeah, I remember when like our work first got Adobe Premiere, it was kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, do you know, absolutely. When I look back at your old stuff as well, because you've talked about so many things there as well that are like just so after my own heart. Like, do you know when you talked about Ray Harryhausen? No matter, because I'm the guest manager of HorrorCon UK, so I meet all the stars from movies and like the directors, all from horror. I meet all of them and interview them on this show, and so many of them quote Ray Harryhausen to me. I grew up like such a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen, and on the last episode that I did was with a director called Dominic Brunt from England. Now, he's like a giant star in England because he's on a soap. He's on like the nation's like biggest soap, Emmerdale. But on the side, he makes horror movies. And we got
Amazing.
talking about Ray Harryhausen last time because I met Ray Harryhausen years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like years ago. I'll tell this story again because it is wicked. You'll like it. I told it a bit on the last one, so I don't want him to think like, oh, he's only got one story, this guy. But when I was like 19, I went to meet Ray Harryhausen, and I'm 32 now. So at the time, he still wasn't like. I think if he was alive today and he was doing a signing now, there'd be people out the door. But like when I went, there was probably like 50 people in a queue like all day. And while I was waiting to get my stuff signed by Ray Harryhausen, John Landis turned up.
What?
Just to get, yeah, like he walked in like a big guy with a suit on and a beard and glasses, and people's like, who's this guy just jumping to the front of the queue? And I looked and I goes, yo, I swear that's John Landis. And then someone said, yo, John Landis, what are you doing here? And he's like, what do you mean? Why am I here? It's Ray Harryhausen. I'm getting my fucking book signed. It's Ray fucking Harryhausen. Like, this is a guy who just influenced so many people. So I know that you've obviously got that love on lock, but what I wanted to talk to you a bit, and we'll get into it a bit with the other movies, but your cuts are deep in your movies. You've got some deep cuts. When I watched Guns Akimbo back the other day, like analyzing every scene, I was like, yo, there's so much going on in the background of this and some of the stuff they're saying. You're a guy who's got them deep cut references, and I can just tell like you're just a dude after my own heart with your work. Do you know when you first started out, what were some of your influences? I know you said about Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Bad Taste. These are all films that like I grew up just idolizing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me when I was really young, like two films that I saw, and I think they're gonna seem like really obvious films when I say them, is like two films that really made me want to make films. I remember when I was I think I was like 14 or 13. We snuck into the prefect's lounge when I was at boarding school, and we watched Evil Dead 2, and that was just mind blowing. Like it just changed my life. You know, I didn't know that horror could be that creative and that surreal. I'd seen horror movies before, but nothing that was just that abstract. It was almost like it's almost like an art movie in some ways. And there was that. And when I was a bit younger, I saw a Bad Taste, which I for some reason I was at like a department store after school. I was probably 11 or something, and I was like looking at Nintendo games. And I looked up and I've got the wall of TVs, and some store clerk had put like Bad Taste on all these TVs. And I just sat there watching, and there was this like people getting chainsawed, and like Derek going like putting seagull brains in his head and all this stuff. And what really struck me is that everyone had New Zealand accents, and that was the time when I actually realized, wow, New Zealand can make films as well as, you know, like America and Britain, and that was quite life-changing.
It must have been because, like, because Bad Taste as a kid was literally like my go-to film. I've watched it 100 times, and it was before you could just like YouTube behind-the-scenes clips and stuff like that. It took me years to track down a copy of that. Do you know, Good Taste Makes Bad Taste, the making of Bad Taste on a VHS.
Yeah.
Because and I was seeing the shit that this guy's making, and he's making his own machine guns, and he's making his own steady cams. He's playing two characters, but even now when you watch it, you're like, how are those the same person? Because they're so different. Like that must have been because that was a big influence for me. But if that was you in New Zealand seeing that growing up, that must have been a huge inspiration.
It still holds up. I saw it recently, and like, you know, I mean, obviously it's very low budget and unapologetically low budget. You know, and I wouldn't want to watch it any other way. But just those shots where he's like up on the cliff, like Derek's almost falling off the cliff. It's like, holy shit, like for a low budget film, he did some amazing stuff. Like it's quite mind blowing. I'm actually working at his company at the moment, and like he's at like it's his it's like a post production house called Park Road Post in Wellington, and it's just an amazing facility, and there's all these amazing posters, like original posters, and he's obviously a big Ray Harryhausen fan as well, going back to that. But the rooms that I walked down these corridors, and there's just all these like Ray Harryhausen original posters everywhere, and yeah, it's a fantastic environment. But obviously another person who was influenced by that era as well.
Well, if you're from Wellington, there must be like a mad little scene building up there, because my friend Rob, he runs the Celluloid Screams Horror Film Festival in Sheffield. So 2 years ago, we had the actor and actress from Wellington Paranormal at Celluloid Screams. You know, the What We Do in the Shadows spin-off TV series?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. And they came to Celluloid Screams, so we got to hang out with them. So if that's in Wellington, they must have like some nice little industry building up there now.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like which is amazing, and a great show, great for Wellington. Wellington used to be, up until like the 90s, the place for film and TV.
Okay.
And that sort of changed when a lot of people started going up to Auckland, which is the biggest city by far up further north. And we still have like the wetter Peter Jackson facilities here, but it's a lot more stuff. Like I think they're filming the Lord of the Rings TV series in Auckland at the moment. So
Yeah, they film so much there.
Yeah,
in New Zealand.
incredible.
New Zealand. Yeah. I saw they shoot Power Rangers there randomly. Like the license now to Power Rangers is filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah, no, two of so both my leads from Milo Cawthorne and Kim Crossman from Deathgasm were both like Power Rangers actors.
Of course they were.
Crazy.
Do you know what? That's just clocked nard, especially the blonde-haired girl. No, of course they were. Yeah, because I'm watching it like, where do I know her from? But I didn't IMDb it because I was like proper analysing it before we did this podcast. No, you're right, bro. Isn't it mad that's how it works, that small little world there? But they're killing it now in New Zealand. I remember like when Lord of the Rings was like out, that everyone was saying like, yo, it's shot in New Zealand and it looks incredible. That just seems like the go-to place now for those big fantasy landscapes.
Yeah, no, I think it's we're really lucky here for locations. Like you can literally drive half an hour and you've got like somewhere that can look like the South Pole, and then half an hour later you're in somewhere that looks like Arizona. Like it's
Good
it's a very
variation.
small country, but the variation of landscapes is really quite vast.
So how you started making films? Because you got into visual effects. Like if anyone looks at your IMDb, like you've worked on some big boy movies, haven't you? Like before you got into doing like Deathgasm, like everything from The Hobbit to Avengers to War of the Planet of the Apes. Like as a visual effects artist, so is that what you went into first?
No, I actually went to film school. So I moved to Wellington, and this is just around the time when I think the third of the Lord of the Rings movie was getting made. So I went to film school here, and after that I worked on a few things, just as like lighting assistant or like a sound assistant, just basically winding up cables.
Yeah.
Which is hard work, man. Like I've got nothing but respect for lighting assistants, because some of those cables are fucking huge.
Yeah, no, I know. I know a guy who started to be. He got a job as an electrician, and he was like, "Oh, it's going to be easy. I just work. I'm just gonna like mess about with a screwdriver." And he was like, "No, like I'm hauling wires all day. He's like, you don't understand how heavy those things are."
It's hard work, man.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. So like I ended up shooting my own film, and it was all on green screen. It was all like this. It was kind of the surreal, dreamlike thing where a live action person's composited into this world where everything's like 2D illustrations.
Okay.
This is in like the mid 2000s, and so I shot it all on a green screen, hoping that I'd be able to afford to pay someone to do the visual effects, naively, and I couldn't afford to do that. So I started just looking at tutorials and teaching myself visual effects, just After Effects and Combustion and a few other programs, and Photoshop, and so yeah, I basically taught myself how to use all these programs to to finish my short film, and then realized that I liked it. I liked doing visual effects. I liked doing motion graphics and stuff like that. So I ended up my first job. I was working in a video shop for minimum wage for a few years while I was doing this, and then I managed to use my short film as a show reel and get myself a job at Weta.
Wow.
And my first job was on this a children's TV show called The What What's, which was like, yeah, crazy. I sort of lied to get the job. There was this program that they were using for the visual effects for the compositing, and they asked me if I'd used it before. And I lied, and I'm like, yeah, no, I've used it heaps. And then they're like, okay, you start on Monday. So I spent the whole weekend with tutorials just learning this program. Yeah, that I don't know if that's a tip for people. Just bake it,
Oh yeah, I've always been told just say yes. You'll figure out
Yeah,
how have to. Or if the opportunity is there, jump on it. No, absolutely.
exactly. Because people in this industry, they love enthusiasm. They don't like people that oh no, I don't think that's possible. No, we can't do that. They like people that just say, oh no, that can be possible, and then just fudge it.
Well, something that's so recognisable with both the films you've released is the visual effects. There's all these mad titles flying across screen and this high-octane editing and so much like motion graphics and visual effects going on. I take it that you don't do all that on your movies now because there's so much of it.
Well, it sort of depends on the film, yeah. I mean, it's definitely very much a team, a collaborative medium, and yeah. I mean, like Deathgasm just came out. It was almost accidental the way that it sort of occurred. We won this competition called Make My Horror Movie, which was run by Ant Timpson, the guy behind like the ABCs of Death and Turbo Kid.
Yeah. I know those. Yeah, my friend Lee Hardcastle has a section on one of those. T is for
Yeah,
toilet
fantastic. Yeah, that's the stop motion graphics guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what happened is it was like the competition went out to be T, and T is for Turbo was one of them, and then that wound up being like, I don't know if that didn't get into the actual cut, but then off the back of it, Jason Eisner produced it with him or something, and it became like a full-fledged movie.
That's right. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
like and we ended up winning that, and it was like 200 K, so which is like, maybe £100,000 or whatever. But yeah, we got to make a movie, and it was we didn't really have much time to put it together. It's like I was shooting in a month or something, so it was just one of those situations where you've just got to like make decisions quickly and just hope you're making the right decisions. But I wrote the script in like about a week or something insane. But yeah, like I there was a lot of influence from obviously Evil Dead there, and also maybe a bit of like Guy Ritchie maybe, and just all these influences, just and also Crank. I loved Crank as a the way that it's almost quite punk rock, how they just they throw all these different mediums at the wall and just hope it works,
No, I spoke to someone a couple of days ago and they'd not seen Guns Akimbo yet, and I goes, yo, you need to watch it, you'll like it a lot. I'm interviewing the director and whatnot, and I was telling him about it, and he said, it sounds like Crank, and I goes, it probably is edited a little bit like Crank. It's got that like crazy style, like especially Guns Akimbo, when he's like just non-stop. As soon as he's got the guns on his hand, it's like you're on a roller coaster all the way through the film. So it's funny that you make that comparison, because that's instantly what someone said to me when I explained it to him before they'd even seen film. Is it like Crank?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a huge influence, and as well as I think Scott Pilgrim as well was a big influence with that film particularly, and yeah, it was interesting because I got chatting to the Crank guys after I made Guns Akimbo, and they really dug it, which was cool.
They was like one of the first guys that were like strapping like a load of GoPros to a car and then rolling it and cutting it all together, different types of graded footage, but like just matching it all together anyway. I think they were like one of the first guys to do that. First time I remember seeing it. Something with your films and all this, like I said before, about there's so many deep cuts. When I watched Deathgasm back, like I could see this like. That's a film that someone who's in, like, I'm not into metal like that. I like a bit of metal, but I'm not like a metal head. But I can tell that there's so many like deep references to bands and stuff like that, and especially in Guns Akimbo, because I know Last Resort Toys. The dude he did he got you a lot of the toys for your background there.
Oh, fantastic.
In Daniel Radcliffe's house. Yeah, I'm having him on the show actually. Last Resort Toys, and I know when Yeah, when he because I didn't even know that he worked in film. I just know him as a toy maker from being like big on the toy scene and stuff. And I messaged him the other day and I said like, "Oh, what's your IMDb? I want to see other stuff you've done." And then he came up with Guns Akimbo, and I goes, "Yo, I'm interviewing Jason like next week." And he goes, "Oh wow," he goes like, "Small world." He goes, I got him like told him like what toys he could get the licenses for to put in the background and things. Because even
That's
those
right.
toys that's in the background, you would only know like you've got to be into toys to be like, oh, he's got the Playmates Turtles there, or he's got that Safube. He's got an Ultraman over there. And the posters on the wall, like, I'm a diehard Stallone fan. Like, if I hear people badmouth Stallone were throwing hands, he's like my guy. Do you know what I mean? And so you've got the Rambo poster up there. You've got the Commando poster. I was like, this is a guy who, like, loves this stuff, man. And these are deep cuts.
Totally. I think in the original script and, my original edit, like, Miles was much more of an action fanboy as well, which sort of got cut out for the, the version that came out. But
yeah.
Yeah, and there was definitely a part of me in there. It was interesting with the Stallone poster because, Miles was meant to accidentally shoot the Rambo. He was meant to shoot him in the head on the poster, and we got it cleared, not everything. Everyone was like, "Yep, fine, we can do this, and it was a visual effect, so we didn't do it on set.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then we got
you don't want to shoot that original poster, yeah.
Yeah, and we got to the edit room, and then the producers came to me and they're like, "So we can't have Stallone getting shot in the head in the poster." I'm like, "What?" So like, if you watch the film, it's insane. There's so many things like that it's but you'll see it. I think the frame gets shot, the gag doesn't really land because it's the frame, but it was meant to be Stallone getting shot in the head.
You won't allow it. It's funny because when we first started Slimehouse TV and it was just a TV show, I had a picture. I had Stallone and Schwarzenegger behind me as I were interviewing guests, and they were like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to have them up there." So we ended up getting it cleared and it was fine. But it's funny that like your movie and my TV show, we both had Stallone and Schwarzenegger up in the background and run into some kind of problems. Because you've got like Death Jaguar up there. I know that guy as well, Rocob, that makes Death Jaguar. You've got that figure. You've got Ed 209. You've got Usagi from Ninja Turtles and stuff. There's so many cool little references. And then throughout the film, do you know his girlfriend's called Nova? Is that a Planet of the Apes reference?
No, I'm not sure where did that name come from. I actually don't. I can't remember where that name came from. I don't think it was like intentionally a reference, but yeah.
I know so many people was in love with Nova from Planet of the Apes, and I thought, I wonder if he's called his girlfriend Nova because it's a deep cut like that. I know that they mentioned Streets of Rage. There's probably so many that I didn't clock. I tried to write some down as I was watching it, but man, to make that jump from obviously Deathgasm, which was like 200. You say it was like 200K. What currency is it that you use in New Zealand?
New Zealand, yeah. So like I don't know what the exchange rate, like maybe £80,000, I think.
Well, yeah, because that's still, to me, that's like, what, £80,000? Fuck, I could do so much with that. But like, It is such a low budget still, isn't it? And you say you made that movie in a month and you wrote it in a week. That's like crazy. And then the jump that you've gone from Deathgasm to Guns Akimbo with big stars like you've got Daniel Radcliffe as your lead. Like, tell me a bit about how that come around. That must have been awesome.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. We made a short list. I was actually working on this other film concurrently with Guns Akimbo called Dead Island, which is it was an adaptation of the video game. I'm not sure if anyone remembers now, but what was going to happen is they were making a sequel to Dead Island 2, and I was going to do the movie, and it was all going to come out at the same time. But anyway, so I'd written the script for Dead Island, and we're going to go shoot that, and I think Australia, and then suddenly I had this short list of actors who I'd love to play Miles, and Dan was on it, and I think there was someone like the financier had an in with him, like had a contact with his manager or something. So they're like, "Oh, what do you think? Should we send Dan the script?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's get it out to him." And then like a few days later, I heard back, and they're like, "Dan's read the script and he loves it and he wants to chat." And it was like, whoa, amazing. So I got on Skype with him, and I had all these notes because I thought, man, he's going to be like grilling me about the character and about the script and everything. And it was like, he just got on the Skype and it's like, "Oh, dude, holy fuck, I love the script, man. This is so cool." And he's just such an engaging guy, and he just talked like for like half an hour about how much he loved the script, and I was like, "Shit, well, do you want to do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So that happened like amazingly. Yeah, it just sort of happened, and I was like, obviously very rapt. I mean, he's he's a fantastic actor, but also just like such a really nice, engaging guy. He learnt all the names of every crew member, like down to the assistants and the PAs and everyone. Yeah, he's like, we're talking before about how like the Deathgasm actors, like a few of them are child actors from like Power Rangers. Same with Dan, obviously, studying the Harry Potter movies. And the thing about working with child actors that I've found from my experience is they know everything happening on set. They're just so clued on.
So used to being around that world.
Exactly. They just know everything. They know where they need to be, and like they know all the blocking, and it's so it happened really. It just happened really well. Went really well.
Because I mean, obviously in England he's a household name, but Harry Potter's worldwide. Like he is like a household name, and then he's left Harry Potter and he did like some crazy projects. He did Horns. He did what's the one where he plays a Nazi skinhead undercover, and then he did the one where
what was that called? That was
the name passes me, and then the one where he's on an island as in he's a dead body.
Like, Swiss Army Man, which I love.
Swiss Army Man, yeah, like out there projects, like to really distance himself to like I'm not just Harry Potter, and so yeah, he's wicked that he picked that up, but it makes so much sense. He's so likable in the film. So was that a case of like at that point it was just a script that you'd wrote, and then when you get Daniel Radcliffe like confirmed that yeah I'll do it, is that then when you go to like get budgets and start approaching people and stuff and be like look we've got him attached? Is that how it works?
Exactly, yeah. So it happened really fast after that. We got financing, and just went from there. And and it turned out to be like a German-New Zealand co-production, which was like really insane. So we had to shoot half the movie in New Zealand, specifically Auckland, New Zealand, and then half the movie in Munich. And neither of those places looked like America, but we had to try and make it look like America. And we had all these weird like things where we couldn't hire any American actors for some reason, so they had to be either like New Zealand, Australian, or European. But we the thing is, and I think at the Q&A in Toronto for Guns Akimbo, someone, actually it was a New Zealander in the crowd, got up and said like, oh man, it looks like it was shot in Auckland, could you not shoot it in New York? And I'm like, yeah, we'll just shoot in New York because that's easy. Like people just think, like people that aren't industry people think you can just go like with a camera and just fucking shoot in New York. It doesn't work like that, So the thing about directing is that you've just got to be very flexible, and you don't choose unless you're like a big director like Edgar Wright or someone like that. You don't. You have to like you get given tools, and you have to make the best film you can with those tools. You can't like shoot like 100 takes of something, or you don't have the flexibility that some people think you do.
There's a saying in England we say you can only piss with the prick you've got.
Exactly. It was a very tight shoot, and thankfully Dan and like our leads were very experienced, so we didn't have to do like 10 takes. I mean, I've never been in that situation where I could have actually done that, because every time you set up for a new take, you're like the first AD's whispering in my ear, okay, so you're gonna have to lose this scene, you're gonna have to lose this like spinning camera shot that you storyboarded. This is what you're gonna lose if you do another take. So
it's horrible.
Yeah, it's hard, and you've just got to make decisions on the fly and hope they work.
Well, that's something that I always find when you're directing. You have to be, and you never want to be, because you just want to concentrate on the art, but you have to be such a problem solver, and then
exactly
and like getting problems thrown at you from every angle. Like people said to me, they go, well, like when we made our movie, they goes, I'd love to make a movie. I'll come one day and we can. It looks fun, and I'm like, no, it's not fun. Like the end product is fun. Making the film, especially like I did it like completely independent, self-funded, having to like break into locations and film before we got arrested and stuff. Or we did get arrested a lot. But like you're getting so much thrown at you from every angle constantly. It will beat down like anyone. And I sometimes think, not because I take it that you're like myself, and you're obviously directing way bigger stuff than I am doing. But you get to a point where like you have to obsess over the project. You have to lose sleep over it and constantly be thinking about it, because otherwise there's so many times I'm there and I'm just like, do you know what? If I wasn't in this mind frame, like having no sleep and constantly on it and problem solving, it would just not get finished.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I've chatted to other directors as well, and it's you put all this work in, and like you said, you lose sleep and you obsess over it, and then when it comes out, you just don't want to watch it. And
Exactly. No,
it's
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I
You don't even want to see it.
and it took me years until I could watch Deathgasm again. I went along with like this I did the festival circuit with it, which was amazing. I'd never been to the Northern Hemisphere before Deathgasm, and I got to go all these countries like, the UK, Fright Fest, which was one of the highlights of the trip, and Germany, America, Canada. After a while, you have to get up in front of this crowd and like present it and stuff, and I just couldn't I couldn't watch the film. I'd
Oh
present
yeah,
it,
yeah. You
and
didn't
then
want to watch it
I'd
back.
just
Yeah.
bail. I'd bail and go for some beer.
Yeah, yeah. When we premiered my movie, like it was like I thought it was going to be such a joyous occasion. It was like horrible. Like all day, I'm just
Oh,
pacing up and down, and everybody came. Everyone in my life, it's like this is your life, and you're just like, oh, do you know what?
yeah.
Like I'm going to present something that I've worked on for years. Everyone's going to see it. Everyone in the world I've ever known is going to judge it in front of me. And no, I know what you're like. When you've done something, you don't want to watch it. I'm same with artwork. When I draw a picture, a week later, I'm like, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. What were I thinking? Which is ironically how we met, isn't it? That's how we met, through the Deathgasm thing. I bet people don't even know that listen to this. But I got hired to do an official Deathgasm release T-shirt for Last Shirt on the Left of
Oh,
your
of
movie.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, fantastic t-shirts. I wear. I know it's weird, like when people wear their own t-shirts, like bands, especially when you see like, you know, like the guys from Metallica wearing Metallica t-shirts is meant to be a no-no, but I still wear my Deathgasm t-shirts.
No, I always get really good feedback on that picture as well. People always really like that. But I'm just saying with my artwork, like I haven't looked at that picture since. I guarantee if I looked at it, I'd be like, I hate it. I'd love to redo it again. But I'm just like that all the time. It's I've never been big on like tattoos and stuff like that, because I draw something and a week later I'd be like, it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I don't have many tattoos, because I'm very like I change my mind very fast, and I'm very indecisive. So it's like,
Yeah, and stuff don't do you know, like the stuff that we grew up, like things that, because you're like me, like you've been into this stuff all your life, and we was into it when you had to like track stuff down on a VHS and find really obscure things. And do you know now that you could just go and buy it all on a Blu-ray, or like all toys are getting re-released again, like they've just re-released all the Ghostbusters original Kenners from the late 80s. Like you can go in Walmart now and buy them all again brand new, and it stops making them cool and cult. So I'd end up
oh
having
man,
something tattooed that was like really cult and cool, and then next minute it's everywhere and everyone's got it, and they're like, oh yeah, you're into that too. Yeah, I've been into it all my life, not like for a week like you. So yeah, it's a dodgy thing now, because everything that was cult is coming back. That
yeah, I know, right? I didn't know they were releasing the Kenner. I've actually got a few of those still. I've got a few of the real Ghostbusters toys. I've got
yeah, the classics.
I've got a big '80s toy collection, like Snake Mountain and He-Man and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the bangers. Yeah, all the certified stuff.
Yeah, but you're right. Like it's with nostalgia, it's funny because even the worst movie made in like 1985, like horror movie, there's even really terrible horror movies from there. There's a massive cult following.
Yeah, for real. Everything's got a cult following now. And like we said before, your film's full of cult film references. Like it's a mad, like, full circle thing. You've also got like lots of social commentary in your films. That's like something that's really rife within both Deathgasm and especially Guns Akimbo.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I always try and have social commentary in there. At the same time, the world, especially right now around us, is pretty shit. So I'm like, I do view films as escapism, and there are people that do really amazing films with great social commentary, which I love. But at the same time, sometimes I just want to make something that's entertaining and something that people can just watch and just get away from the real world a little bit. Yeah, that said, there was a lot of, in Guns Akimbo especially, that I was trying to say about online culture, social media, the media in general, the way that the media seeks to divide people, which at the moment with the riots and everything, it seems more it seems more poignant than ever. There's
I think something you do really well is like, do you know, when you make a point, like I love that part in the film where you're talking about microtransactions, and he goes, "Oh, we're making a game literally to squander parents of money in via microtransactions." Those little things that are like they are like bullshit, and you hit on them without beating people over the head with it. It's a film about a dude that's got guns attached to his hands, having to who's like
yeah.
forced to play in a game of death, but then you usher in these other little things
That
subtly.
actually that was based on something that happened to my boss. And he just discovered that his like I think his 8-year-old kid had clocked up $6,000 worth of microtransactions for this game. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah, that's
that's
fucked, man.
that's fucked up. Like I can't imagine. I imagine how guilty that kid must have felt as well. Like I didn't do anything that bad when I was a kid.
No, I think, I mean, I remember like one of my very good friends, Slacky, that we're making a movie with. It was his nephew's birthday, and I says, "Oh, what you getting him and stuff?" And he's like, "Oh, he literally just wants Fortnite credits." And I'm like, "Really? That's what kids want nowadays?" I'd be like circling the catalog for the He-Man figures and the Power Rangers and all this shit, and he's like, "Nah, like kids nowadays, they literally just want a card that you get from." I don't know what your supermarkets are. We have like Asda and stuff, and you
Yeah,
just get a card and just put them that in a card, and it's like, oh, it's like 20 quid's worth of microtransactions for Fortnite. You can get some different skins for his character and things. All stuff that doesn't even actually exist, does it? It's like just
yeah.
digitally. It's not even something you can hold.
That's how they get you these days. And I'm a big fan of like the Doom games. And you'll actually see there's lots of references to like Doom and Quake and Wolfenstein and
Yeah,
Guns
yeah. You got a
Akimbo
nice
and
package I saw delivered on your Instagram, a nice big Doom package
yeah,
sent by those guys. That was
yeah.
nice,
No,
bro.
I'm
That's what
good
you know
friends
you've
with those
made
guys.
it.
Yeah, no, they're great guys. So, but Doom's got this thing where like and it's not microtransactions because you can't buy them. You can only unlock them by playing the game. But I'm like one of those completionists that's like, oh, there's a new skin. I've got to unlock this skin, and it's like it's really fun, and it's a game that I enjoy, but at the same time, it's a first person game. Like you can't even see the skins when you're playing. You can just see a gun in front of you.
I think it comes from like the collector in us probably, because I know like you've got a collection of 80s toys. I've got like one of the biggest collections in England of toys. I understand collecting more than anyone. And when I'm playing games and there is something I can get that's completely pointless, but it is just like an extra skin, I'm just the same. I do think it comes from the collector in you, but I don't mind. I was having this conversation on a podcast recently, and I don't mind when it's something that is actually like an extra in the game. If you have to pay more, like the new Mortal Kombat comes out and then they release a combat pack with new characters and it's like another £20, and it's like, okay, it's £20, but it's more characters for the game. You don't have to get it. It's when it's like play to make your character better. Like, oh, you get a better gun or you get more lives, you get more skill points that makes you better in the field. And that's when it starts giving games like a class system.
Yeah, and it's kind of and also like I think in some of the games like Battlefield, you can just unlock like all the weapons by paying and stuff like that. And it's why it just it takes away from the fun of the game, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I first discovered that shit with Warhammer. Do you get Warhammer? That
yeah,
were always
yeah,
like the rich kids had the best armies because that shit was expensive. So they were the ones that had all the tanks and the guns that could fire further and more powerful because they just had
yeah,
more money to buy that shit.
yeah, amazing.
Something else that we spoke about before, which I really like with Guns Akimbo, is a lot of the effects you said were like recycled from other stuff, and I think a bit in Deathgasm as well, and then you wrote the script around the effects that you got access to. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I so it's sort of this crazy synchronicity. So they did the Evil Dead remake. They shot in New Zealand, and we basically managed to the company main reactor had like all these gore rigs in this container, and they were like, okay, well, you're a low budget film, we'll let you have these gore rigs, like just yeah, do what you want with them. They're all from Evil Dead. So yeah, it was fantastic, and we had the same thing from Guns Akimbo, whereas there's Ash versus the Evil Dead, and we had the same production designer, so heaps of props from Ash versus the Evil Dead, the TV series, made it onto Guns Akimbo. But yeah, with Deathgasm, we literally, I had the script finished with all these gore set pieces, and then when we got these actual gore rigs, I went back and rewrote the entire script just because you make do with what you've got, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's which is fantastic, and I think there's like and I think that's a British thing as well. Like the old, the BBC sci-fis and the Hammer horror movies. You always see like, Cat from Red Dwarf swearing something from like that's been on Blake Seven, or
Yeah, yeah.
Hammer horror over
No, they do, they do.
it's a fantastic. I think it's a fantastic, way to do things. Why do you have to like make everything every time you make a new film? Like recycle.
It's one of them as well. Like I think when you are a filmmaker, like you meet someone because when our film was so independent that I'd meet someone and they'd be like, "Oh, my dad's got a speedboat." I'm like, "Yeah, he's got a speedboat. How easy could we get to use it?" And then I'll write a scene in that as a speedboat because I have the access to it. I think that's just like an indie film mentality. You'll probably take that with you now
Yeah,
throughout your whole career. You,
yeah.
you can't you can't hear about someone having like a crazy location without thinking like, "Oh, what's the chances of us getting a day film in there?"
Yeah, no, and you've got to do stuff like that. That's it's really smart. I think you're always, because it's all about like production value when it comes down to it, and yeah, it's makes such a big difference. And yeah, you're right of locations, because it's hard to find good locations sometimes.
It's one of the oddest things I think when you're making an independent film, especially trying to get locations and then getting locations that were secured. Some of my worst horror stories filmmaking was like when I'd had a location secured and then like the day before or actually on the day, like they're like, "Oh, you can't use it anymore for whatever reason." And even if it's like contracted, like which was contracted, they still said on the day you can't do it. So even if you're like, "Okay, well further down the line we can trace this up and we can take action and make sure that they're accountable for letting us down last minute," but it doesn't help the production. You still have to think on your feet. Like what we were saying before, you're constantly getting like bullshit thrown at you when you're making a film and you're having to overcome that.
Yeah, no, we had a funny thing happen with our locations on Deathgasm, like the Ricky Dagger's house, where we have like the big third act
Such a sick location
showdown.
as well.
Yeah, but we hired that, and the people that owned that, like, they lived across the road in this like nice house, and I don't know if there's some like miscommunication, but they didn't really know what we were up to, and they were also Christian, and so like we spray painted all these pentagrams in the Ricky Dagger's house, and then and when we were shooting the third act, obviously, like you like leave all the gore and the weapons and the blood, because it's a hot set, and you
Yeah, yeah.
wrap out and come back the next morning. And so we wrapped out, and then the next morning before the crew got there, one of the owners walked in. There's this like just gore everywhere, just torsos and heads and pentagrams, and they freaked out and they almost kicked us out. They had to like talk them off the ledge.
Yeah, they had a shock.
Yeah.
Did you have any like horror stories when you're making your film, or like something that was like really? I mean, Deathgasm or Guns Akimbo, maybe even more with Deathgasm because it was more independent, or even with Guns Akimbo because there's more pressure on you. Like anything that were like like you really had to push something out the bag to make it work.
It's interesting. Like, I think one of the worst things was on Guns Akimbo, actually, where we shot like the park scenes where she's stalking him in the park, and then he like jumps in the car and runs off of
Yeah,
nowhere.
yeah,
And because of a series of, it was only, I think we relocated to Germany, and we had some of our New Zealand crew members were there, but then all these new German crew members, and there, even though a lot of German people speak English, there's still a bit of a language barrier, and
yeah.
yeah, so we were still finding our feet. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here, but there was a miscommunication about the RPG. So we got on set, and we were about to film, like, oh, where's the RPG? And old Hans is he's got it in another part of the park. Well, why? He thought that's where we were filming. Like, can someone ring Hans? Oh, I don't think he's got a phone. And then it just all, the whole day, just, it was a nightmare. Like, I think out of the whole day we got like 2 actual hours of shooting. And yeah, so those scenes that of her stalking around the park were meant to be a lot cooler, and they didn't really stand up as much as they should have. But then all this other stuff, when we relocated, everyone, like, no one knew where we were going, so people were relocating everywhere else. And yeah, it was a crazy day.
Yeah, but you'd never know. The film's stitched together so perfect. I
Oh,
felt
thank
that
you.
like when I was watching it, like when you're a filmmaker, you watch films as a viewer, but you're also watching them trying to dissect how they did it subliminally, even if you don't want to. That's just the curse of anyone that wants to try and make films. And like when I'm watching that, it was like it gave me headache how fucking perfectly it was stitched together. You would have never known it was even shot in different countries or anything, or that like that park scene should have been longer. I thought it's perfect. It's actually one of the most iconic ones in the film, and it's in the trailer at the start. It's like the first things you see when he jumps in the car as she pulls up the RPG to him.
That's true, yeah, and the shots that we did get were worked, and yeah, but it was that was one of those days where you just things go wrong, and you just have to try and deal with it the best you can. It's I think sometimes when you talk to people from outside the film world, like just audiences, they seem to think that a director's omnipresent and in control of everything on the set, and it's just not the case. It's a lot of the time you just need to make the best of it. You need to try and make the best decisions to make it work, and sometimes it doesn't work, and you've got to try and fix it in post or whatever. But it's it's a crazy job.
What's the pressure like when you're working on a film that's got a budget like that? Because you've got Deathgasm, which is relatively low budget. As far as filmmaking goes, Deathgasm had a small budget. And then you've got Guns Akimbo, which it must have had a huge budget, much bigger budget than Deathgasm. What is the pressure like, having all that weight on your shoulders to just deliver something? Like, it must be fucking daunting.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it wasn't too much different from Deathgasm, like in the way that the crew is set up and the dynamic and everything. Like there were more people around, but the it was so much more ambitious than Deathgasm in the script phase. So there was it wasn't like we were suddenly eating caviar or it was in a lot of ways a lot harder to make than Deathgasm, which was we shot Deathgasm in 20 days, and I don't know, like there is something about the more people that on set, it's like a bigger machine to move around, and it's a slower beast. One of the fun things about Deathgasm, which it was just such a like it was so sleek, I guess. It was like the slimline creature, just like we just had like two lights basically and we had like a cinematographer and a gaffer and two lighting assistants. That was a whole lighting crew, and at some points like the lighting assistants would just actually, the cinematographer would be like, all right, hold that light, point it at that actor, and let's roll. Like, so we were moving so fast that the light, we weren't even setting up light stands. The lighting assistants were like human light stands. Yeah, and that's how fast we're moving. And there's something, I think that energy is reflected in the film.
Technical wise as well, Guns Akimbo's got some like really elaborate action set pieces. Because I know that you've got the dildo fight scene in Deathgasm, and it's like a lot of like slow motion and stuff and chopping together. But like when it gets to Guns Akimbo, some of the action scenes that they're all over. And I saw one like you're shooting parts on green screen and then trying to stitch, and then you're stitching them together. Like how hard is that to when you're on set filming, knowing what you need to get and then what you're going to be filming on a green screen and chopping in together? That must be like such a jigsaw to put together.
Yeah, no, totally, and fortunately, I had an amazing first AD, and Robin Grace, who was also my first AD on Deathgasm. So, she was like that side of my brain, and yeah, but it's I storyboard everything out, and it's one of those things. You just it's the process. I don't think it really became second nature as such, but it's it does get easier as you go along.
Coming from someone that did visual effects as well, it probably helps you a lot when you're filming something, knowing like, yeah, this is going to work, because if I was going to do it, this is the way I'd want it to be filmed.
Totally, yeah. And with visual effects, I think the trick is to know your limitations, and to know, to look at a shot and say, this is going to be actually pretty easy, or this is going to be a clusterfuck, and a lot of problem solving surrounding that. There's certain things that crew members think could be a big deal in visual effects, like a cable on the ground, like and yeah, that shit's easy to just paint out. Whereas some things are like reflections can be harder. But
Rotoscoping around people and shit like that. That's the long
yeah,
stuff, isn't it? Where you're like
yeah,
animating frame by frame to paint things out. There's that whole saying, isn't there, when you're on a set and it's always, oh, we'll fix it in post, we'll fix it in post. And like every one of that, they all add up. They all add up. I remember we thought we had like 20 visual effect shots. By the time we'd like sat down, we came back with like 150 effect shots because
oh
there's just
god.
so many things that you don't think about.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like how it is these days. Even like a bland rom com has got like 1,000 visual effects shots these days.
Yeah. Yeah, stuff like Wolf of Wall Street. I watched that. Have you seen the one where they do all like the different composite shots in Wolf of Wall Street? Stuff
Oh,
that you just never think of. Like it's just I don't, like a drone shot, like panning in on a pushing in on a mansion, but then it shows you the breakdown and the sea's not real. All the houses in the background weren't real. There's this all different elements. You're like, fuck, man, it was literally just a shot of like some people partying in a mansion, but there's like all these different composite shots together that you just wouldn't ever expect watching that film.
yeah, no, it's amazing, isn't it? And you know, I love the control and the power that you have with visual effects. At the same time, I like. There's something about going back and watching a film like Taxi Driver or something like that, and just knowing that it's all in camera.
All real. I think that when you watch Dirty Harry,
Yeah,
it looks so good. And you're like, man, do you know what? Not only does this look so good, like all those cars are like real. It's shot in that time. It looks so perfect. We're so unlucky now. Like we're lucky in a way that we have like the access to digital stuff. We can film something and watch it back the second that you press stop on the camera. But like all these cult films that we grew up loving, they're so ropey, and audiences were just not as clever then when they were watching them. They see a monster that's a puppet and it looks a bit ropey. They just bought into it. Nowadays, like audiences are so clever. Like you can't slip up anywhere, can you? Everything has to be so slick and perfect.
yeah, no, it's interesting, and yeah, like yeah, people are quick to point out if there's anything, yeah, like you said, anything ropey or yeah, I don't know. There is something to be said for like and I think what gets me is the explosions in old films when they actually like you watch Commando and they actually explode a bunch of shit and it's
The best,
amazing.
the best. I love
And
it. Do you know? Oh, sorry, what were you saying? Sorry, I
oh no
interrupted
no,
you.
yeah,
Really rude.
yeah, just like they are just amazing, phenomenal explosions, and you watch them back now and you can't beat them these days.
The dream is these. Do you know Invasion USA with Chuck Norris, the Cannon movie?
Yeah,
They actually got a whole town that was getting demolished. It was having a road put through it, so they were like, "Yo, you can literally destroy everything." That's why they're bazooka in houses, they're driving trucks through shopping malls, smashing everything because the whole town was getting demolished anyway. Like that's the dream. Do you know what I mean? Where you can literally just blow it all up for real.
yeah, fantastic.
So moving forward, obviously bearing in mind we are in the midst of a global pandemic and like most of the movie industry is completely on lockdown now for the most part, it's still all shut down. What have we got to look forward to from you next? Because I can't wait to see what your brain's going to spew out.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a it's a very crazy time, and there was a lot of projects that I was in talks to people with like before the lockdown and before the coronavirus, and then you know yeah, a lot of stuff's kind of on hiatus now, and I think everyone's struggling. Even the big studios are struggling to figure it out. Fortunately, in New Zealand, we're now out of lockdown, and we haven't had a case of coronavirus for a few weeks. So Avatar and the Lord of the Rings TV series are back shooting now, which is great.
Oh really? So shit that big's back on. I didn't know. I didn't.
Yeah,
I know that New Zealand's like really handled it well there. Like you're one of the places where the rest of the world looks at them like
no,
they're an
New
example of
Zealand.
how it should be.
Yeah, New Zealand's almost like it's almost kind of corrupt how much how much power film has in New Zealand. Like there was a mayoral election last year, and one of the old mayor wanted to develop all these subdivisions in the suburb that Peter Jackson pretty much owns, Miramar. And so Peter Jackson bankrolled another mayoral candidate and got him in.
This
It's
guy's a dude. He's
crazy.
got his own. He's got his own
He's
fucking
got
like
some politicians in his
district.
pocket, man. It's yeah, he's like a godfather figure, man. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So one of the first international people that were allowed to fly from LA to New Zealand. Actually, it's one of the first LA to New Zealand direct flights ever as well, because usually it's like via Hong Kong or whatever.
Yeah, it's far.
Was James Cameron and his crew. So he was one of the first people allowed to fly back to New Zealand. And
To crack on with Avatar.
yeah, yep, it's crazy. Like it's like, well, the show must go on. And a lot of local politicians were a little bit outraged, like, why are they letting the filmmakers in and blah blah blah. But it brings millions of dollars to our economy. And yeah, it was crazy. He's wearing one of those like sneeze guard masks the entire flight.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, what you're saying on this new technology, this Mandalorian technology, where they've got these like big screens that literally
it's
play
fantastic,
Unreal
isn't it?
Engine. That's
So
going to
good.
change the face of filmmaking surely now, especially for this stuff where it can be like a more low key crew and you don't even have to be on location.
I just think when I see that stuff, because I do a lot of green screen stuff as a visual effects artist, and
Yeah.
I always just think of that in terms of like, how much better is that for the actors being able to feel like they're in the scene, because you see them walking around these green screen deserts, and it's like, it's demoralizing, and yeah. So when I saw what they were doing with Mandalorian, I thought that's beautiful. It's amazing. I love it.
It's meant to be like indistinguishable, the ground to like the fake, like the real ground to the fake ground, and the background. Like it's, I mean, but Werner Herzog was talking about it because he's like fully like,
Yeah.
I think in that film he made, I can't remember the documentary it is. It's called like In Hell or something. But he spent like a year dragging a fucking giant boat across the Amazon just
That's
because he
right.
needed to film this boat in a specific place. And even he's like, yeah, no, this is the next level now. This changes everything.
Yeah, no, fantastic. It's I can't wait to play with that technology.
Well, I'm sure you'll get your chance, brother. I'm sure you'll get your chance. Just finally, before we wrap this up, because I know it's like 7 a.m. there, so I don't want to keep you any longer. It's the only way we could time this with like the 12-hour time difference between the UK and New Zealand. But just before we wrap this up, where can people find you on social media? Where can people keep up to date with future projects and everything Jason Lee Howden?
Yeah, like I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I stay off Twitter because it's a cesspool of bullshit. But
It is, man. I hate Twitter at the minute. Yeah,
oh Jesus, it's
Twitter's like a war zone right now. It's just everybody fucking firing on each other.
it's so terrible. And I think I sort of blame Trump as well. Like he lowered the bar. He lowered the because people don't talk like this. Like, if you were in a bar and you're having a conversation with someone, you don't suddenly start like, like all caps yelling at them, or like, getting up on the top of a table and pointing at them and shouting, "This man believes this." This isn't how people are meant to communicate. It's sociopathic. It really is a mental illness, I think, social media in a lot of ways. But
Because your comment,
yeah,
sorry,
so I try and stay off that.
sorry, I would say like your comment on that in Guns Akimbo, definitely when he's there trolling all night, and then soon as he's actually put in the fucking game for real, it's like a whole different story. Like, you would never, the way people talk to each other on the internet is never the way they would talk to him in like face to face.
Yeah, and it's just the amount of nastiness, and it's so easy to dehumanize other people, and just like I remember I got accused of being like alt-right for like making a joke, and it was about Johnny Rotten wearing a Trump t-shirt.
I
Which,
see
and
the
I was like,
picture.
yeah, and I was like, man, is he a Trump supporter, or is he still? Because Johnny Rotten was always like the biggest troll.
Yeah,
When you
it
read
were.
about the history, and I love the Sex Pistols, but you go back and watch footage and read about them, and they were just a bunch of young trolls. They were loving
Yeah,
it. And
yeah.
is he still just that same person? And someone got offended, and anyway, it's like, and it's strange that they could put me in that category. Like, I mean, I was like in this like glam goth band in the 90s. I literally was wearing makeup and a dress. I got into a fight with these skinheads that had crashed our party, and so I'm literally fighting skinheads, like in a punch up with skinheads, while wearing makeup and a dress. And they're like, so for someone to characterize me as it's as soon as you have an opinion that isn't like in line with the hive mind, they're like,
That's it, yeah. Like, it kind of forces your hand to go with a popular opinion. Otherwise, you're fucking part of the problem, and you're hounded. And yeah, man, it's at minute I just feel like you can't do right for wrong, and no matter
no.
what you say, someone's offended by it. So you've just got to be true to you, aren't you, and do you, and be and same with your art and the films you're making. Just do what feels right to you and keep your own integrity.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm yeah, like the biggest friggin' hippie, but like even these days it's not enough. It's so yeah, anyway, I think social media yeah, if people actually, take time to get to know each other, they'll realize they've got more in common than they do
Yeah, we all want the same thing. We all just want everyone to not be a dick. And even if like
yeah.
someone's explaining it the way that you think doesn't sound right, I think if you look at the bigger picture and look at take your brain to a higher level, yeah, they're probably on the same page as you, want the same thing. They've just articulated it different. There's this culture at the minute, especially like with the protests and everything that's going on. I'm seeing so many people like screenshot people trying to call them out and stuff.
Oh,
Oh, check this guy. This guy's so racist. Make sure you delete him off your Facebook. And I read it back and I
yeah.
think, do you know what? Like I can tell he's not trying to say it in a bad way. It's like you're almost doing it for validation. Just like understand people, and if someone's saying something that sounds a bit off to you, educate them, speak to them. Do you know what I mean? Chances are you probably think the same thing anyway.
The screenshot culture is just it's just totally
So
fucked, and
bad right now.
I don't know what these people actually how they make money. Are they like on the unemployment benefit? Like, do they, because they seem to just be on Twitter 18 hours a day just
Yeah.
screenshotting and like abusing people, and I'm like, what do you actually do? Like,
Well, the internet gave everybody a platform to have a voice, and 99% of them people got it in their head that everybody wanted to hear what they had to say, and that's just what I see Twitter as at the minute. It's just like a
yeah,
fucking everybody
yeah,
wanting to just shout what they think in your face.
I'm
So
over
yeah,
it. I
I
like
just want to sit and draw and edit. And
Yeah, totally, bro. No, I like Instagram because it is more creative. You're like putting something
I
out
love
into the
Instagram.
world, and it
Yeah.
is there is like a vacuous side of it, like Insta models and all that shit. Like,
Oh,
yeah, it's so lame, but at the same time, I think the great thing about Instagram is you have to supply like a picture, whether it's like a photo or like a picture or a selfie or whatever. It's you're still sort of creating something. It's not just like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
an
Exactly.
opinion. You're putting something out into the world, and to me that at least that's a lot more positive than Twitter. And but yeah,
So that's where we can find you. Basically,
yeah.
that's what we will go into, innit? Where can we find you? Instagram is the best place to hit you up and keep up to date with what you're doing.
Probably. I mainly just use it to like share fan art, because the thing I love about this is like, and I've been very lucky with Guns Akimbo and Deathgasm, but the fan art is just phenomenal. And
Oh, I love the cosplay, man. I always said when people
yeah,
start cosplaying your
so
characters, that's when you know you've made it. When Funko pop you and when people start cosplaying you, that's when you've made it. And you get some dope cosplays.
it's so cool. And just the fact that people take the time out to draw or dress up like one of my characters. I mean, especially when I'm having like a day where I'm like, feeling low or whatever,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
really picks me up, and
Makes it all worth it,
yeah, it makes me feel like people, they made the effort, they enjoy something that I'm doing. And yeah, I mainly just use Instagram to like repost like fan art and yeah, so I don't know, it's that is the great side of that's the good side of fandom, and that's like what a lot of people, some people don't really see that side, but that's the side of it I love. And
Well, I think you get it because you're such a fanboy yourself. You're like me. You're such a fan of this shit. You've got no problem saying, "Yeah, I did this scene in my movie, and it was directly inspired by this film that I
yeah,
fucking love."
totally.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's fucking awesome. Well, Jason, thanks so much for joining me today. It really means a lot that we could get you on the show for a little bit. And I know it's early, so I'm going to let you get off. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, man. You're a legend. I can't wait to see what you've got coming out next. And if anybody wants to check out your movies, if they haven't already, where the fuck you been? But Deathgasm and Guns Akimbo are both on Amazon right now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Also, Deathgasm's on Tubi, which is like
Okay.
free as well. So and I just discovered Tubi. It's TUBI TV.com, but I just discovered it recently, and there's so much cool free shit. Like there's Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Phantasm and Return of the Living Dead. It's an amazing streaming site. And yeah, so Deathgasm, you can just watch it for free. It's totally free.
Fucking no excuses not to check out
No,
Deathgasm. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today, Jason. I'm gonna leave it there. Slimehouse social distancing podcasts with myself, Theo Cane, Jason Lee Howden, and we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, we're gone. Boom.
awesome. Thanks so much for having me,
Nice
man.
one. So how awesome was that, man? I felt so lucky to be able to get an hour of this guy's time. This is a dude that had to get up at 7 a.m. in the mornings while I sit here at 8 p.m. at night chilling. Had all day to get ready for this interview and stuff, and he's having to get up and do this at 7 a.m. Absolute soldier. Shouts to Jason Lee Howden. Like I said, if you haven't checked out his movies, they're both on Amazon. He said that Deathgasm is also on Tubi. So yeah, man, absolutely awesome to get this guy involved. And make sure you follow him on his social media, get him on the Instagram, and if you do any cosplays or fan art, remember to tag him because this guy will repost that shit. Fucking awesome. If you did enjoy this podcast, I'm Theo Cane. Make sure, like I said at the start of this video, at the start of this podcast, however you're checking it out, to leave a comment in the comment section, give it a like, and make sure you subscribe to our channel. I'm going to keep these podcasts coming, trying to get really awesome guests, creatives within the field, people that do this full-time, stuff that they love, and they've made a living out of it. They've made a living out of the stuff they love, which is the dream, of all of us. We want to make our money doing the things that we love. So, thanks so much for listening to this again. Catch you on the next one. Bye!